Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Maludimim in Israel. One of the more remarkable conditions of the human mind is that of satisfaction, and of its opposite, dissatisfaction. These two states of being seem to be universal among human beings and possibly exist in higher forms of animals. They are as natural to us as breathing, and thus elicit no sense of amazement when they arise. They are simply there, a part of our lives that we cannot live without, because we wouldn't know how. What really are these states? Are they emotions? Most people would probably say that they are, for no other reason other than that there is nowhere else to put them. They are not really active thoughts, nor are they memories or anything of that sort. But do they really fit into the nebulous category of emotions? Those seem to rile us up in a certain way that gets us excited beyond the normal state of calm or indifference. Satisfaction and dissatisfaction don't really do anything like that. They are more of a gauge as to how we see things at the moment. Perhaps we can call them an emotional gauge rather than an actual emotion, since that is what they really seem to be. With that as a definition, we can examine them a little closer. This emotional gauge acts as a kind of equilibrium meter, telling us in some internal manner how we feel about some aspect of our current situation. Satisfaction is when the meter is pretty steady. It is right where it should be, and nothing much is happening on the emotional level other than a sense of calm. Dissatisfaction is when the meter is off kilter in some way. It registers that something is wrong, whether real or imagined, which should be fixed. The feeling of off doesn't go away unless either the situation is remedied or our mind drifts onto something else. It can be very difficult to get rid of dissatisfaction simply by forcing it to go away. Some people have trained themselves to be successful in this regard, but they are the lucky or persistent few. The rest of us have to just deal with this sense that something isn't quite right and hope that we can either straighten things out or we get distracted by more pressing problems. It is hard to imagine human beings in any stage of the evolutionary game not having these states of mind. It would hardly seem human to be without them. When our ancestors were sitting around a fire in a cave somewhere, did they not feel this gauge working its magic? If someone was a little cold or hungry or the stone floor was uncomfortable, they must have felt a sense of dissatisfaction. If everything was fine, it stands to reason that that feeling of satisfaction enveloped their mind. They probably didn't think anything of this since this was the way they were. Questioning it was probably as pointless as questioning the heat of fire or the hardness of stone. Various spectrum of satisfaction is found in all forms of literature throughout human history. It forms the background condition of any person in any situation. It is like the weather on a physical level. It is there, we notice it, perhaps react to it some way, but take it for granted that it just is. It is not unusual that satisfaction levels don't need to be stated in a story. They are assumed since they are always there. Even a text as profound and as lofty as the Bible has its share of satisfaction gauging. When Cain's offering to God was rejected, he felt anger and disappointment. He was clearly dissatisfied with how things were going. He somehow came to the conclusion that the only remedy was to kill his brother Abel, whose offering was accepted. But he found that satisfaction is an elusive quest. When we pursue it by improper means, we find that we are left as wanderers and fugitives in the world. We are forever pursuing that which we have right at our fingertips if we would only open our eyes. This week's Parsha is called Beha'alotcha. Like all Parshas, the title is nothing more than the first significant word in the reading, as defined by the vicissitudes of Jewish tradition. The title means when you ascend, or something like that. It is a word in a verse describing the procedure of the Kohen Gadol lighting the 7-branched candelabra in the Mishkan, known as the menorah. When this procedure is fully described, the Parsha goes on to various other topics, such as the purification of the Levites who served in the Mishkan and the age limits of their service there. Following this, there is the single mention in the Torah of a Passover ceremony being observed in the wilderness. Jewish tradition has it that this was the only one ever observed during the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. A surprising twist happens with this ceremony when some people approach Moshe with the dilemma that they were ritually impure and couldn't participate in the bringing of the offering. Moshe didn't know what to do with this situation, so he communed with God to find out. The resolution, it turned out, was to set up a second ceremony 1 month later, by which time the formerly impure people could purify themselves and bring the makeup offering. This second celebration has since become known as Pesach Sheni, the second Passover. The bulk of the middle of this rather long parsha is taken up by a description of the procedure for embarking on the beginning or the end of a journey, and the layout of the various tribes marching is set in a definite arrangement. 2 particular verses are written to mark the moment when the Ark of the Covenant was set in motion or was rested. These verses are quite poetic and express the innate connection between the Ark and God, which was its defining feature. The final third of the parsha deals with 2 complex situations that began with problems and resulted in what seems to be severe punishment being dished out to those involved. The first concerned a communal complaint about food. The people had had enough of the manna, the mysterious bread that fell from heaven with the morning dew. They hungered for what they remembered they had back in Egypt, various vegetables and fish. They especially wanted meat, and the manna was no substitute for that. The resolution of this complaint was that God promised them more meat than they could handle. They wouldn't get a mere day's worth or 5 days or 10 days, but a full month's worth of meat. They would end up detesting it to the point of nausea. This whole drama plays out when a massive swarm of quail lands all around the encampment. The people went out and gathered huge amounts of the quail and, of course, began stuffing their faces. The meat was, quote, still in their teeth before it was consumed, when God's anger struck the people with a great plague. This incident ends on this sad note, and the place it occurred was given the ominous name of Graves of Desire. The second incident involves Aaron and Miriam, the brother of and sister of Moshe, complaining to him about his wife. The nature of this complaint is unclear, but it seems to have involved something about Moshe's exclusive right to direct prophecy from God. God enters the picture with a rebuke of both of them for not fully comprehending the nature of Moshe's unique prophetic experience. In the end, Miriam is forced to undergo an infection of the biblical skin disease known as tzara'at to atone for her insolence. Let's get back to that business about the complaints over the bad food. They somehow remembered that things were absolutely rosy back in Egypt. They had all the fish they could ask for, and the vegetables like cucumbers, watermelon, leek, onions, and garlic were all in abundance. Now they wanted meat, even though it seems that they had brought out plenty of livestock with them. The real issue, it turns out, was that the manna, which they would eat every day and which was the staple of their diet, they were sick of. They were sick of it and wanted something else. This was classic dissatisfaction. They had all they could ask for with the manna. The Torah describes it as, quote, similar to a coriander seed with a sheen like a precious gem. They would spread out and gather it and grind it with a millstone or crush it with a mortar. They would cook it in a pan and make cakes with the taste of an oily wafer. This is meant to show that the manna was very satisfying and better than any vegetable they fondly reminisced about having in Egypt. Their complaint was entirely unfounded. It really wasn't a complaint at all. It was a case of looking for a reason to complain, but not really having one. The Torah even describes the beginning of this series of complaints as like complaining. This wasn't a genuine gripe. It was a forced expression of dissatisfaction. The end result of all this was the quail. They got what they wanted, but in a manner that made them regret ever having asked for it. God told them that they would have so much quail that it would come out of their noses. In the end, some sort of plague struck them. The Torah doesn't describe what exactly it was, other than saying that it was very harsh. The odd name Graves of Desire might give us a clue as to what it really was. The text doesn't say that anybody actually died, but something had to be put in a grave. It was desire that died. They lost their craving for quail meat or anything else. That was the plague. Sometimes when we get more of what we wish for than we can handle, we lose any desire to have it. This is a classic reaction to a craving. It is also a classic case of be careful what you ask for because you might just get it. They got what they complained about all right, but the situation after getting it was worse than before. The cravings were there, and they weren't satisfied by the steady and boring manna. They needed something more exciting and exotic to satisfy their longings. When their wishes were fulfilled, they were plagued with dissatisfaction. This is like a kind of karma. The consequences exactly fit the cause. They wanted more, and they got more until they reached the point of disgust. What would have been a better resolution of this problem? That's obvious. They should have been satisfied with the manna. They should have realized that this was the perfect food for their situation, and that any recollection of how great things were before the manna started falling was nothing more than the latent curse of dissatisfaction arising once again. The cure for dissatisfaction is satisfaction, but it is not a cure that can be picked up at the store and swallowed like a pill. It must be culled and honed and thought about and mulled over. It must be felt and cultivated until it becomes second nature. Satisfaction is a blessing, almost like no other. As the famous rabbinic statement goes, who is the fortunate one? That person who is satisfied with what they have. Shabbat Shalom.